Today I'm going to talk about Vue.js and how to get started and how easy it is to get started. I've been using Vue for about a year or two, not that long ago. I've been using Angular for 6 years and I've been in the industry for nearly 20 years. My name is Jack Passos. I was a solution architect until about a year ago. So this is my Twitter handle and my blog. I was pretty active on my blog, again, until a year ago when I decided to quit my job and start traveling around Australia. So that's my current office, and that's my house. So I've been traveling with my family full time while doing this like talks where I am and doing work where I am as well. But back to the talk, I'm going to talk about Vue.js, a bit of history of Vue.js, or who created and stuff like that. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to get started with Vue.js. And then I'm going to share what you do next. Okay? About Vue.js. Vue.js was created by this guy here, Even Yu. So he was in the AngularJS team originally, and he thought, well, what if I get all the bits and pieces that I like about AngularJS and build my own framework, but way more lightweight? So who here has used AngularJS before? I guess most of you would have problems with performance with AngularJS. Yeah. So Angular, the new Angular is way better, but I'm not going to go down that path. I still love Angular, but Vue.js is amazing. But what is Vue? So Vue is a progressive JavaScript framework, and what does that mean? It means that you can adopt some of the features incrementally. So you don't need to bring the whole framework, the full featured framework, at once. You can bring features as you need, all right? But the core of Vue, well, it's focused on the Vue itself, hence the name Vue, right? Again, you can bring additional libraries, more sophisticated libraries, part of the ecosystem of Vue.js, or any library, any NPM library that you want to bring into your application. And it's really performant. In fact, the core of Vue.js, minified and gzipped, is only 20 KB. So it's pretty tiny. So here are some of the features available on Vue.js out of the box. I'm going to try, in the demo, I'm going to try to go through most of these features so you can get a handle of how Vue.js works. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to cover everything, but I'm going to try to cover 80% of this list or 90% of this list. So let's go to the getting started. What do you need to get started with Vue? So since this one is JavaScript user group, HTML and JavaScript is a must. But I guess everyone will know these two here. And if you do want your application to look half decent, CSS comes quite handy. Some of the recommended tools when you're developing with Vue, the first one is VS Code. If you're not using VS Code, I highly recommend. I've been using VS Code since the beginning with any front-end development. Also, the Vue VS Code snippets gonna make you more productive when building a Vue.js application. And the other one, it's probably not a recommended tool, but a must, is the Vue Dev Tools. So you can check what's going on behind the scenes in the browser with the Vue Dev Tools. So we're gonna go through that a fair bit during the demo as well. All right, so demo time. And in this demo, I'm gonna build a simple app, which is a to-do app, right? I'm gonna create a simple app to manage a list of to-do tasks, to-do items. And I'm gonna demonstrate with this demo some of the core features. And I'm gonna do all that in under 15 minutes. How does that sound? Good? Yeah, that's kind of boring, right? So that's the demo that everyone does when you're starting to learn a new technology. So I'm not gonna do that because that's boring. I'm gonna build a killer app, right? And in this killer app, I'm still gonna demonstrate the core features, and I'm probably gonna be in under 15 minutes. But because you guys are hungry, I'm probably gonna need to do that in 10 minutes, all right? So let's go with that. right, so I'm gonna start with index.html. Can you all guys see at the back the screen? All right. Have you guys used Emmet before? Who knows what Emmet is? Just a few. All right. Emmet is amazing, and you're gonna see that in practice here. So I'm using VS Code, and Emmet is a tool that's built into VS Code for you to make you more productive as well. Right, so I'm gonna start with HTML5 template, and that's Emmet, and that builds that for me. Okay, and with that, I'm just gonna get the path here and open in the browser. I probably should have here. All right, so that's already here. And I'm gonna name that the killer app. All right? Cool, the one thing that I need to bring is Vue itself. So I'm gonna go now to the browser and I'm gonna bring the core of Vue.js. So I'm gonna go to the website, Vue.js.org. I'm gonna go to the get started and I'm going to copy the CDN for Vue. Easy. And I'm gonna paste in here. The next thing I'm gonna do, because I'm not a CSS guy, I'm gonna bring Bootstrap as well. Just so my application is half decent. And I'm gonna paste here. Cool, so far so good. All right, so now what I'm gonna do, again I'm gonna use Emmet for that. I'm gonna create a div here with the class container that comes from Bootstrap with an ID app, okay? And inside of that, I'm gonna create a header one, all right? So that's it. And this is the title, all right? So just so you can see that it is working, if I refresh the page, that's my application. Nothing fancy so far. As you can see here at the top, I've got the Vue DevTools installed. And because I didn't write any Vue component yet, this is grayed out. So as soon as I have a Vue component, the browser is going to recognize Vue, and then you're going to be able to see what's happening behind the scenes. All right? So back to here, now we're gonna create a Vue instance. So I'm gonna create a script lock, and I'm gonna start a new instance, Vue. And the way this is gonna work, I'm gonna bind that to an element. And it's gonna work pretty much as a jQuery element, all right, or selector. So I'm gonna use the app here. So anything inside of this div here is gonna be part of the template of that root component, the root Vue component. Does that make sense? All right. So one of the cool things that I think of Vue is the way it separates data from methods, from lifecycle hooks, from computer properties, and so on. With Angular, since I've been working with Angular a fair bit, I found when I went back to Angular, I found Angular was a bit messy when it came to separation between state and methods and things like that, because inside of the component, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So you can put everything anywhere in the component. So it got a bit hard to manage that. So with Vue, the data is gonna be inside of data, right? Methods will be inside of methods. So you have that separation. Computer properties, which I'm gonna show what it is later, is gonna be under computed or computed. And lifecycle hooks will be in the same level. So for example, if you want to hook something to the created lifecycle hook, as soon as that component is created, it's gonna trigger that, you can put that as well. So there are a bunch of stuff that will come here as well if you need to use. But in this demo, I'm just gonna start with that. All right. Okay, so if I save that and go back to the browser, now you're gonna see that my little icon now is green because it recognized Vue inside of my application. I'm not gonna cover the dev tool right now. I'm just gonna go back and demonstrate the first feature of Vue.js, and that's gonna be the reactivity. So I'm gonna put a title here using the interpolation, which is the double curly braces, to bind something that's in the component to the template. And that's only one way binding. It's from the component to the template. So I'm gonna create this property here, title, and I'm gonna give it a value. Okay. So now if I save that and go back to the browser, now I have the CLI app. So that's just a way of binding the value. And just to demonstrate the reactivity, I'm just gonna open the DevTools here. And once you have the Vue DevTools installed, you're gonna have this tab here at the end. All right? And when you open that, you can basically navigate through the whole application. So right now we only have a root component. But once you have more components and child components and multiple components in the same level, you can navigate that in a form of a tree. Okay. So right now I only have that. So as you can see, if I change anything in here, it will reflect straight away in the template. Okay. So that's the reactivity system working. All right. So that's cool. That's just a hello world. So that's nothing fancy. So let's do something more interesting. So I'm gonna start in the created lifecycle hook because I want to bring some data into the application because that's a killer app, right? So in the killer app, I'm gonna have some characters. So I have someone to kill, right? And I'm gonna use the JavaScript fetch API. So I'm not gonna bring any fancy things to bring data in. I could, but because that's a 30-minute talk, I don't have much time to bring extra stuff. So I'm gonna use the fetch API to bring data. And what I'm gonna bring is these list of characters here. All right, so you're gonna understand what it is just in a second. So I'm gonna get the JSON value of that. And then I'm gonna bind that to the characters, all right? Any question on that one? It's simple? Cool. Just so we can test that this is working, I'm just gonna bind the characters in here, just so we can see that blob of JSON coming in. So if that's working, we should see a blob of JSON. All right. That's not really exciting to see, okay? So let's change that. And what we're gonna do now, I'm gonna show you the next feature of Vue.js, which is the v4. So I'm gonna create here a div row, and inside of that, a div call3, and inside of that, a h3. Okay, so in this call3 here, I'm gonna create a v4, which is just a loop through an array in the component. So I'm gonna set a character in characters, all right? And then that's gonna loop through. One thing that Vue.js has when it comes to loops and to make it more performant is for you to set a key for each iteration of that array. Because if anything changed, and if you have that key set, then Vue.js will know exactly which part of the DOM to update instead of updating the whole thing. So that's not going to change anything in the UI, especially, but it's going to make it more performant. So for you to bind the key, we're going to use the vbind colon and key. All right. So that's just a key for that iteration. And we're going to set the index, all right, coming from the iteration. I'm going to bring the index here as well. And I'm binding that. And the way you can bind to an attribute is the same way, is using the vbind. I'm going to come back to that in a sec. All right, so once I have that, I can use that character to print something here. So let's put, again, the interpolation. Character name. Okay, so if I save that, now I have a list of names instead of a blob of JSON. Okay? All right, that's not super exciting yet, but I can see a list of characters here, okay, in the DevTools. So let's do something different. I'm going to create here now an image, and I'm going to set the source URL for the image in here. So I can use the vbind again to set an attribute, and anything inside of that is going to be calculated, okay? But there is a shorthand for the vbind, and it's just using the colon. Like some people prefer that, and I prefer that because it's less wordy. I can put these in here, character, and that's going to be the character image thumb, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see if I got it right. So now I have a bunch of images coming up. All right, so that's cool. Some characters don't have image, so I'm going to filter that out just so we only have characters with image. So I'm going to filter that in that fetch. I'm going to get a filter here only with characters with the image. I'm going to save that, and now I have only characters with images. So far so good. So now I have a way to loop through an array and then display that in the screen. So that's all right. But there is so many characters that's hard to find someone. Hey, it's like 255 characters. So let's create a way to filter that. So I'm going to create now at the top here a filter so I can filter that list. All right, so I'm just going to create an input here. I'm just going to create a class, the form group, which comes from Bootstrap, form control. And I'm going to show you how to do a two-way binding. So right now we use the interpolation, the v4, the vbind, which they are all one-way binding. But now with the vmodel, we can have a two-way binding. So this is going to come from the component, and if you update in the template, if you change the value of the input, that's also going to update the value in the component. So it's a two-way binding. I'm going to set that to a keyword, and that's a property that I'm going to put in my component again. And then we can see that happening. Keyword, it's empty. All right, so let's save that and update. So now I have this input field here. All right. So if I go to the DevTools, I have the keyword here at the bottom. And if I change anything here, say stock, that changes it here. But now I have to hook it up so it updates the screen with the list of stock people, right? Or characters. Let's do that. And we're going to do that with computed properties. And the computed properties are awesome in Vue.js. So I've been using Angular for a while, and I couldn't find anything as good as the computed property for Angular. And the way it works, it behaves, well, it looks like a method. It behaves as a property. But the thing is, it's all caged. And the value is only going to be recalculated only when any of the dependencies of that property changes, if that makes sense, right? So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to create a filtered characters, okay? And this is going to be dependent on the keyword. So if there is a keyword, then I'm going to do some filtering. Otherwise, we're going to return the characters. So it's basically dependent on keyword and characters. So if none of these change, the application is not going to recalculate the value. But if you use a method instead, then every time anything changes in the application, that value is going to be recalculated. So it's highly optimized to display things in your template, right? So whenever you can use computed properties, that's the way. All right, so let's do the filtering here. So I'm going to get the characters. I'm going to apply a filter, and I'm going to set the filter based on the character's name. Okay, so I'm going to bring the keyword here, and if that has the keyword in the name, then return that list. Okay, so if everything went well and I put stock, it should work. Well, it didn't, right? There's something missing. So I still have to use that computed property. I'm not using it at this point. So what I need to do, as I said, it looks like a method and it behaves as an attribute or as a property. So I'll go back to my v4 here, and instead of using characters here, I'm just going to put the filtered characters. So what's going to happen here in the input, as you change the value of the keyword, you only care about the keyword itself. And the computed property is going to get that keyword because it changed, and it's going to recalculate. And the template, because it's dependent on the filtered characters, it's going to change that automatically. So you don't need to create the whole life cycle to make that happen. That's only gonna happen like out of the box. So if I save that, and now I put stock, that should work. Cool. All right, but there is a character missing here, isn't there? So there is someone who is a stock who's not here. Any guess?
Tony Stark?
Tony Stark. That's missing as well. So let's create that. So Jon Snow is not here, so let's add him here. All right. So I'm gonna add a filter again, and this filter is basically to include not only the name but the house. All right. So if the house name is available, and the house name includes that keyword, then we should list Jon Snow as well. Does that make sense? Yeah, sort of. All right, so if I save that, refresh the page, look for Stark, now I have Jon Snow. Cool, because he's in the house Stark. Okay? All right, I promised a killer app, but I'm not killing anyone at this point, right? So I have to start killing people. And as you know, Game of Thrones, we kill people randomly, right? So it's not like, it doesn't make any sense, like people just get killed. So we're gonna create this function now, this feature now. So we're gonna create a button here. Again, div row, and I'm gonna put that in a div called 12. And I'm gonna create a button, btn primary. And yeah, that's fine. Okay, and I'm gonna create a queue. Cool. And I'm gonna bind to an event. So right now I haven't created any event. I haven't bound to any event or method. And that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna use the v-on, and I can bind to any HTML5 event. To a click, to a hover, to a key up, key down, any of this stuff. And I can also bind to any custom event that you might create for your custom components as well. All right. So I'm gonna do a v-on click, and I'm going to call a queue method. All right, which I'm gonna create in a second. But there is a shorthand for v-on the same way there is a shorthand for v-bind, which is the @ So if you don't want to type v-on :click, you can just use the @ click, and off you go. All right, so back in the methods, I'm gonna create now a queue method, and we're gonna queue people, right? So I'm gonna call this poor bastard, and I'm gonna randomly pick a person, right? Because, well, that's Game of Thrones. I'm gonna get a random number and multiply by the length. So I'm just gonna pick a random number. Makes sense? Not? It didn't make sense to me when I just started doing that. Anyway, back here, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the characters, and I'm gonna splice, which is just gonna remove one item from the array based on the index. So I'm gonna remove that poor bastard, and only one person, right? So hopefully that's gonna work. So I'm just gonna open DevTools here. Right now I have 255 characters, and if I click the kill, I should have 1 people less, right? You know Game of Thrones, that happens way quicker than that, right? So I have to implement a new feature because the kill is not gonna work, right? So I have to kill more people at once. So I'm gonna create another feature. Can anyone guess which feature will kill more people than a single kill? Oh, well done. I should have a prize for that. Red wedding. All right, so if the red wedding is true, then I'm gonna kill more people, right? So count, I'm gonna check red wedding. If red wedding, then I'm gonna get half of the cast, all right? Otherwise, it's just gonna be one person. And I'm gonna change that to here. Oops. And off we go. And I'm gonna create another button in here and call that red wedding. The primary is going to be danger now because, well, it's red. And the queue is going to send a true value. All right, so now if I click on the red wedding, that number is going to decrease like way quicker, right? But hey, there is another feature that's missing. There is only one person left. Who is here now? No? The king? All right. We'll put that in. All right, with that, I'm going to show you one more feature, which is the VIF, which you're going to use all the time. Which is going to random in the DOM only if that expression inside is truthful. Anyway. So I'm going to create another computer property, isKing. And if that's the case, then we're going to see the Lord of the 7 kingdoms, right? Cool, let's see that. So I'm going to create another computer property, isKing, and it's going to return, well, these characters, length equals 1. Cool? All right, so if I refresh that, and I keep killing everyone, then this guy is a lot of the 7 kingdoms. All right, so was that easy? Easy to build? Was it in under 50 minutes? Are you guys too hungry now? All right, we'll go back to the slides. Just to cover a few more things. All right, so the way you saw me creating that killer app, that's cool, that's all right. But if you think about creating a large application, doing this way is probably not the best way, right? This way is nice for you to create a demo, create a proof of concept, or even introduce Vue.js to an old application. So let's say you have an MVC application running in your company and you want to bring some reactivity or build a better user interface or user experience, then bringing Vue.js to that in that way is going to be nice. But if you start from day one thinking, all right, so that's going to be a single page application, then that's probably not the way, right? The way you would do that would be by using the Vue CLI. And the Vue CLI is going to help you building a larger application and separate into components and all that in a much easier way. Okay, so let's have a quick look on that. I promise it's not going to take too long. I'm just going to show you how the structure is and how you can bring more features into a Vue CLI application. All right, so let me cut off from here. Okay. All right, so I've created already a application using the Vue CLI, and I'm going to show you how the structure looks like. But before I get to that point, I'm just going to bring the command line here. Just stop that. So I can show you how the Vue CLI works. So if I type Vue, because I have already Vue installed, if you don't have Vue CLI installed, you can install by running globally, npm install globally, and then add Vue CLI. And off you go, you have Vue installed, all right? If you already have installed, you can type Vue, and then you're going to see what options you have. For this application here, I did a Vue create, and then I put a name, right? And when you do that, it gets into a wizard for you to create an application. So you can start by selecting your features that you want from the start, or you can start by the default and then implement new features later if you want. So I could start from the default here, and that's what the application that I'm going to show you comes from. But if you want to select more features, you can go manual and then select TypeScript, PWA, router, Vuex, CSS, CSS preprocessor, linter, unit test, and end-to-end test. So you can bring more features other than that, but that's the only ones that are in the Vue CLI, all right? So I'm not gonna do that because that's gonna run npm install in the application, and you know that downloads the whole internet. I don't wanna do that at this point. I'm just gonna clear that, and I'm gonna show the application that already started, okay? So that's the way it looks. So it brings the node modules, which I assume everyone here knows what a node module is. It's a bunch of npm packages. It's got the public folder, which is the start point of the application with the index.html, and all the files will be injected here at build time. And you can put some static files here as well if you want. In the source folder is basically the whole application, your whole application. So you have assets, which are also static files, and you have components, which are reusable components, right? In the main.js, you're going to see that it looks really similar to the way I put together. The main difference here is now I have a renderer, which is a root component for my application using the Vue CLI way of doing, right? Which is actually pretty similar to Svelte, I think. Anyway, and then it mounts to a selector in the template. Okay. If we have a look at the app view, you're going to see that we have a template. Each of the Vue files, they have template, script, and style. So it has this clear separation. When I started working with Vue, I found that quite weird, and I actually liked having 3 separate files. But as I kept working with Vue, I actually kind of liked the way that this happens. Because anytime you change the template of the script, you want that to be put together, right? So it's sometimes it's hard to go back and forth from the TypeScript file to the template and things like that. So that's all in one file. And then the hello world is just a component, a simple component. And again, we have the template, script, and the style. So just so we can try it out, I'm just gonna run that here. npm run serve, which is gonna run a node process, and it's gonna serve that application. So the cool thing about using the Vue CLI is you don't need to keep refreshing the browser. As you change your application, that's gonna build automatically, and it's gonna update the browser for you. Okay, so if we go there, now I have a really simple application with a hello world component built into it. Okay, nothing fancy. But now let's say that I want to introduce router in a Vue application. So how does that work? So what I can do here, I'm just gonna stop that again, and I'm gonna bring Vue add router. Okay, so that brings that new feature. And the good thing about this plugin or this new feature is it not only brings the npm package that it needs, but it also updates your application so you have at least a start point to learn and then go from there, all right? And you're gonna see that with the router specifically. So it's gonna ask if I want the history mode or not. Any preference, history mode or no history mode? Or you don't know already?
Yes.
Yeah, history mode. All right, yeah, I'm with you. So basically, no history mode means you have the hash in the URL. I don't like that. I always choose history mode, but then it might require some extra configuration in your server if you're gonna deploy that. Okay, so that's gonna install. It's probably not gonna take too long. And once that's installed, I'm gonna show some of the changes that happen, that it's made. Okay, so it changed a few files. In the router here, it created some sample routes. So it created the home and about, so you can understand how the routing works in Vue.js. The home is quite simple. It just brings the home component. But the about is actually quite clever because that's going to use lazy loading, and that's something that we use a lot to separate our whole bundle, right? So if you have an area in your system, let's say an admin area, you don't want a normal user to always download that admin side of the system, right? So you want to separate that for that to load only when a person who has privilege goes to that route. Otherwise, you don't need to load that at all, okay? So that's the whole lazy loading, and that's an example for you to use lazy loading with Vue.js, okay? So these are the routes, and then in the main.js, it brings the route and put in the Vue instance. Easy like that. the old app view, where before we only loading the hello world, now it has this router view, which is gonna render the route itself. That's where it's gonna render. And then it's got a navigation at the top, just to switch between the home and about, all right? And the home and about are just normal views, just a simple component, all right? So if I now run that, npm run serve, now I should have that navigation at the top, and you can see that going back and forth. Okay, so now I have the navigation at the top here, and I can go back and forth from about and home. So that's how simple it is to bring a new feature into your Vue application. So if you wanna add state management, that's as simple as doing that, or any other, the unit testing, end-to-end testing, that's super simple as well. Okay, so I'm not gonna go too deep on that because I'm probably over time. What's next now? So if you like what you saw here today, have a look at the Vue.js.org. They have an amazing documentation. If you go to the guide and to the cookbook, they go pretty deep on each of the features, and you can learn about the whole life cycle and the whole ecosystem of the Vue applications. It's pretty awesome. And with that, that's it. Thank you very much.